Hello and welcome to Influence, the show made for and by the College of Ag and Life Sciences. Joining me today are Drs. Jay McCurdy and Miss Amy Wilbur from the Plant and Soil Science Department. And we're going to talk some turfgrass today. So Dr. McCurdy, if you could, give us a little rundown on who you are, what you do, and what it's like for you every day at Mississippi State.
Glad to be here. We're glad to be here. I'm the State Turfgrass Extension Specialist. I'm also an associate professor in the Department of Plant and Soil Sciences, part of the College of Ag and Life Sciences. And we are collectively part of the turfgrass team here at Mississippi State University.
Right. And that job doesn't just keep you here at Mississippi State, does it? It
has statewide responsibilities and even, although maybe not necessarily on paper, some region-wide stakeholder support types of roles. So in our capacity, Amy and I do work with cooperative agencies around the United States. So that might be the United States Department of Agriculture, but we also work with entities that are companies. So we work with various ag chemical companies as well as other companies that provide support or products for turfgrass industry.
Right. And circling back to campus, you do spend a lot of time working with students, and as a matter of fact, the last time you were on the show, you said getting to see your students grow and develop into professionals was your favorite part of getting to be here. Is that true today?
That's true. That's true. Still today, I think one of the things that I take the most pride in is seeing those students develop and become professionals, and contribute back to both the undergraduate base that's coming back to Mississippi State, and then they hire our graduates. We get to see them at various stakeholder types of industry functions. But our program, the Golf and Sports Turf Management program, is a concentration within plant and soil sciences. It's an agronomy degree, and we have about 25 undergraduate students right now. We've got 6 or 7 graduate students. Amy is also a graduate student in addition to her role as an extension associate. And so, yeah, we are a important part of supporting the nation's turfgrass industry.
Right. And so your undergraduate students or your graduate students who are coming out of your program, what kind of careers are they getting to turn around and contribute to?
Yeah, so, relating to how those students go into the industry, they typically go in as either an assistant superintendent on a golf course with the understanding that they would become full superintendents. They might go on to be sports field managers. We've got some great sports field managers that certainly stay here on campus, one of whom is Brandon Harden, who's the field manager or over the fields for athletics. But then we have a number of students that stay here and work for him as assistants. And many of our students go and work elsewhere, obviously. That's a big part of what we do. Students may also go into the larger turfgrass industry. Sod production is a minority of our graduates, but many do wind up in sod production or in seed production. Sometimes they go into industry supply side, so that would be ag chemical sales or seed sales, fertilizer sales, things like that. So, and also some of them, a statistical number of them do go into being graduate students. I don't know exactly what that number would be, but probably about 5% go on to advanced degrees.
Right. And so on graduate students, Amy, you grew up on a sod farm, correct?
I did.
And tell me how that experience really brought you to where you are today here at Mississippi State.
Okay, so it's a pretty long story. I grew up on a sod farm in Maryland, which is in the transition zone, growing warm and cool season grasses that can be used in home lawns, athletic fields, and golf courses. And I found it really satisfying to see the athletic fields on game day after they were sodded a couple months prior with their sod. And so that led me to a degree at Ohio State in turfgrass management. I was able to intern in sports turf at Wimbledon as well as on a golf course in Birmingham, Alabama. I didn't find those to be careers that I wanted to pursue for the rest of my career, and so I enjoyed school, so I decided to come down here and work on my master's, working on pre-emergence herbicides in St. Augustine grass. So problem that sod producers face is what can we apply to prevent weeds from growing in while we're trying to establish a stand in the field. And so coming from my turf background, I like being able to solve problems for turf producers. And so I graduated with my master's in May of 2021, and then that led me into my role as an extension associate, and I'm pursuing my PhD in turfgrass weed science now.
Well, that's fantastic. And I think it's really important to highlight that extension has such an important function in educating the public and helping to reach out. So how fulfilling do you find it to be working in extension and be able to connect with producers and stakeholders and make an actual difference in what agriculturalists are able to produce?
I find it very satisfying to know and test different products and then be able to make those recommendations to producers, because as academics we're expected to write and publish papers, but our typical sod farmers or golf course superintendents aren't going to read an academic journal. So just giving them the basics and what's really applicable and not necessarily all the detailed science behind it. And so it's really rewarding to help them and try to increase their profitability and production in the state.
Awesome. Well, between the sports fields and the writing, it sounds like one day might never look exactly like the next. So could you give me a rundown of what the day-to-day looks like?
Depends what the weather is like this time of year. It's end of May here, and what we're dealing with mainly is, can we get in the field and work? So we've just gotten about 2.5 inches of rain over the last 3 days, and so we can get out there and we can look at things, but we can't get a lot done. So weather drives a lot of us this time of year, and then also we do travel a good bit, both in state and around the nation, sometimes internationally for conferences. So we oftentimes are building our objectives around those dates and preparing presentations. A good bit of our time is spent, believe it or not, in the truck or in a field. So that's a big part of stakeholder support. An average day for us though is it's a pretty normal work week with expectation of travel and expectation of meeting some objectives. Sometimes it's a long day, but we enjoy it, I think, by and large.
Yes.
Right. And I think we actually have a few pictures that we can turn our attention to for some of the opportunities that undergraduate and other students get to experience in the department.
Yeah, so this is Amy. Excuse me, Amy's there, and so is Isadora and Eddie Carlos. Isadora's project is a PhD project. We call it Refuge Lawn, and there are actually three states involved in the Refuge Lawn project. It's a USDA-funded project where we're actually looking at including pollinator habitat within turfgrass. So you might think of this as including flowering forbs in order to amend those types of monoculture lawns so that there are actually more pollinators visiting and gives more habitat, more forage habitat for those pollinators. So yeah. Brandon Harden's a big part of the turfgrass program here at Mississippi State. He doesn't often get enough recognition, but he's award-winning as an athletic field manager and is a pleasure to work with. Does a lot to try to incorporate our students into his workflow for maintaining sports fields. He's a big part of employing our students as hourly employees, but then also he goes on to really represent our golf and sports turf management program because he is such a good sports field manager. We've got opportunities for all of our students. There's plenty of jobs and internships, but a key part of our golf and sports turf management program is that students will have spent approximately a year working, and that is 3 separate semesters. Usually they would do a spring semester, and then they would do a semester that would be either spring, summer, or summer, fall, back to back. And that gives them an opportunity to see the challenges that a superintendent or a sports field manager or whatever it may be faces over a change of seasons. These are 2 of our students that were working at a golf course out west, and here they're spraying greens. We've got other students that have worked elsewhere around the United States and around the world. This student is working at Birmingham Country Club and is doing a plant growth regulator application on some surrounds of a green. So there's a lot of opportunities. I think most of our students would agree that our program prepares them for a career because they have had those opportunities to work and see, or work at and see so much difference in what the career fields are, as well as just getting to manage people and manage grass.
Right. Well, Amy,
Oh, well, this is another photo. Yeah, this is a great one. This is a photo of our annual event, which is our field day. That field day is held September 22nd this year at the R.R. Foyle Plant Science Research Center out at what we call North Farm. And this is an idea of what those stakeholders would do, would be and come and see some of those trials that we conduct. You want to show the next one here is actually under a rainout shelter. So my colleague, Dr. Barry Stewart, conducts research in a variety of environments. One of those is where we withhold irrigation, and we actually look for how different varieties respond to lack of water. And so there's some really neat things that we find. Some of these grasses do quite well, some don't at all. So we've actually been fortunate enough to have several of our different grasses entered into many of these different variety trials. So I think the next photo does demonstrate some of those. Yeah, well, actually, this is another example of what we do. So both Amy and I are from a sod farm. We have some interests, but also just some understanding, innate understanding of what sod producers are facing. And one of those is ensilation, or the heating of sod masses. So a pallet often arrives at a big box store, and over time it turns yellow, and the plant foliage etiolates and actually is trying to find sunlight, which it can't. Right. It heats up because of anaerobic respiration, the lack of ability for oxygen to move gas exchange with that big sod mass. And so we often do research to look at how different treatments affect that internal temperature. So that was an example, that photo was an example of that. So
very nice. Well, Amy, would you mind telling me about what might have been some of those incredible experiences that we've talked about, whether it's through internships or in the classroom, that in turfgrass have really led you to this point?
Okay, so I went into college knowing I wanted to major in turfgrass, but in my undergrad, quite a few of my fellow students were just people who were in business and worked on a golf course for the summer and were like, I like this, I want to be outside. And so I was able to, it was more of an agronomy degree, learning the basics of growing plants with specialization classes in turfgrass. And they really push you to do internships and find out what you like before you're applying for jobs. And then that adds to your skill set. So working on a golf course is a great experience. Usually they provide housing for their interns, and so you work a lot of hours, but you learn a lot about growing grass. So in Birmingham, they're trying to grow cool season grasses, so trying to keep that alive through the summer was a challenge, but it was a fun time and really bonded with my coworkers. But going back to that initial drive of wanting to work on a sports field led me to Wimbledon, where we were managing the tennis courts for the All England Lawn Tennis Club for their championships. And so that was a really neat experience, unlike anywhere else in the world, to host a high caliber event on 8mm tall grass. So it was a very precise science, and they definitely have it down pat. And so it was a great experience, and just moving around the country and around the world gives you a different perspective on how different people work and different management styles. And so from each experience, I've been able to see different management styles and working with others, and that kind of helps me as I go forward, working with other people and managing different types of grasses. And so that has played into some of the ideas. Whereas like in Europe, they don't have the chemical control, so a lot of our work is with new herbicides, but they don't have that around the world. So what are some cultural approaches to managing weeds that we might be headed towards in the future? And so that's kind of driving some of our research, or limiting the use of pesticides going forward. So it all kind of meshes together, and I'm still trying to figure out what I'll do forever, but it's been a great experience along the way and definitely guiding our research.
Well, that's awesome. And I want to thank both of you for being here, and Dr. McCurdy for the dedication that you have to your students and helping push them forward. And from all of us here at Influence, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.